Greetings, explorers, and welcome to the second episode of the Multiverse Archives. I'm Laura, and today I am once again joined by our amazing writer Philip as we continue our deep dive into PlanetQuest lore and its creation.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me back, Laura. I'm looking forward to jumping into more PlanetQuest lore.
We received a lot of amazing comments last time, so thank you so much for the support. We really enjoy doing this and we'll definitely be keeping this up. We have also already announced the winner of the giveaway, the 5th head of Cerberus, which by the time this airs, the book will be on the way to the winner. So thank you everybody for participating and stay tuned for more giveaways. Of course, there are many more factions and sub-factions to explore within the PQ multiverse. And last time we already alluded a little bit as to what we were going to talk about today, which is the birth of the Red Moon clan as they split away from the Twin Moons. And yeah, without further ado, Philip, could you give us a little bit of an introduction to this topic?
Absolutely. Today we're talking about the Red Moon clan and its predecessor, the Dual Moons. It's going to be a fun trek down memory lane for me, as it has been a short while since I worked on those particular tribes.
So we've seen the Red Moon clan in some of the most recent chapters of our interactive storyline. But oftentimes what we do is we drop little hints and tidbits in earlier chapters. Could you tell us a little bit about when we have seen some parts about the Red Moon clan before, maybe in earlier seasons? And when did this creation process of the fall of the Twin Moon start?
So the thing about the Red Moon clan is that it is a violent clan. One that, if given the choice between peace and violence, is always going to choose violence. But there is a reason for that. It is because when the Red Moon clansmen were part of the Dual Moons, their violent urges were very much suppressed for the better angels, as it were, of the Dual Moons and the Union's beliefs at large. The Dual Moons were once among the largest clans of the Union. They were allied to clans such as Tribe Sunless, such as the Lighthammers, these very important tribes which are key to the identity of the Union as a sort of society of equals, as a society which works on the common concepts of just sharing resources and showing a sort of human dignity to all. That eventually came to change for the Dual Moons. They became, little by little, a clan that was interested in no more than pretty rhetorics for those rhetorics' sake. This led some in the clan to become disillusioned with the entire better rhetoric of the Union. And what eventually came to pass, was the Night of Moon's Fall, which saw, in a single night, the Dual Moons, the ideology that underlined them, that acted as a foundation of the very clan, all of it came to crumble down under a coup, or if you will, a putsch that saw the Dual Moons transformed and turned into the Red Moon clan. Very few of the Dual Moons survived that night, but some did manage to. One of the people that did manage to survive that Night of Moon's Fall is in fact a very familiar face to many of our community, Sarah Vance. And you will find out a lot more about how she came to survive this in my colleague Justin Sloan's PlanetQuest novels as they come out later down the line. But needless to say, others did survive as well. Unfortunately, those who survived, they did so by clinging to the shadows, and most survivors are very much incapable of exacting the kind of revenge they would like to on the Red Moon clan. Maybe that will change.
So we've seen the Red Moon clan in some of the latest chapters of our decentralized storyline. When did the idea of this history from the Twin Moons to the Red Moons come from, and where has this creation process started?
That's an excellent question, Laura. I am going to admit that this was one of the early pieces of lore that I wrote for PlanetQuest, and it is one that seems to have resonated with many of my fellow colleagues on the narrative side. I know that Justin certainly enjoyed it, Jason has had a lot of fun with it, and it's an absolute joy to see that this core conflict between the Dual Moons and the Red Moon clan, it has given all of my colleagues a lot to play around with. So the reason it came to be, like most of the lore codex I work on, is so that it invites collaborative storytelling between my colleagues, between anyone who is working on the PlanetQuest lore. And it has been one of the most resonant pieces of lore that I have written. So if we're asking about specifics about the idea, where it came from, I'll admit, I don't quite remember if it was inspired by something or if it was just the kind of idea that my twisted little mind came up with, but I'm very proud of it. It's one of, I think, the most enjoyable ideas. And of course, if I have to think back just based on my historical conversations with myself and my love for history, there are definitely a few like revolts, revolutions, coups that played into building up that dynamic between the before and after of the Red Moon clan.
Our storyline has been going on for 3 seasons now, and oftentimes what we do is we drop little hints and little tidbits of history in earlier chapters only to return to them later on. Where have we seen hints of the Twin and Red Moon clan in earlier chapters?
I think one of the early chapters that saw mention of the Red Moons was, it had to do with Tribe Sunless's borders. I believe that the Nerogol, the Imperial House that attacked Tribe Sunless in the middle of the 2nd season, they actually passed through the Red Moon's borders and their territory at large, and that was the area of attack from which they engaged the unsuspecting at that time Tribe Sunless. Another moment when the Red Moons came to be mentioned, I believe, was in a Lore Codex post that I made about the different kinds of drugs in the PlanetQuest universe, because, and that's a fun little tidbit that maybe hasn't made much of a headline in the storyline itself, but the Red Moons, they actually have a very specific kind of psychedelic fungus that they make use of. One that gives them a bit of a boost to endurance, a bit of a boost to their strength, but also makes them schizophrenic to a point, and that is part of why they are not the greatest negotiators, if you will.
That's really interesting. But even though you mentioned that they might not be the best negotiators, they have been around for quite a long time, and for as far as I know, they do have a relatively strong leadership. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. The Red Moon clan has actually been around for a little over 2 decades now, and all this time they have been commanded by a Triumvirate. That Triumvirate is led by 2 men and a woman. The woman is the trio's strategist. Her name is Benagor, and we actually saw a glimpse of her. We caught a glimpse of her along with Sarah Vaz in the very premiere episode of the season 3 of the storyline. And Benagor is perhaps, in many ways, the deadliest of the Triumvirs. Not in sheer physical capacity, of course. No, that would be the scourge of Larat. And Larat is the biggest, it used to be the biggest city of the Dual Moons. Now it's no more than a graveyard. And without giving too much away, I'm going to say that its current condition is entirely and completely the fault of the scourge of Larat. This is, I think, the mountain from Game of Thrones, but worse, far more intelligent, far more independent, and perhaps one individual who was key in introducing the psychedelic mushrooms that I mentioned earlier to the tribe at large.
These drugs seem to be incredibly powerful. Do you think we'll be seeing those spread further through the core systems, or is this something the Red Moon clan is keeping close to their chest?
Well, I'm sure we'll have every chance of finding out soon enough, but keep an eye out on that. I'm sure it will pop into the story at one point or another.
So of course, within the PlanetQuest multiverse, we have these three very different factions that all have very different types of government. We have the Imperial family, we have the Presidents of the Federation, we have the Union itself. But then what seems to be the case is that within the Union we also have all of these different tribes and clans that also have different leaderships. What do you enjoy about writing these different organizational structures? And what is fun to play with for you as a writer when it comes to, for example, the Triumvirate?
With the Union in particular, it's all about freedom. And what I love about writing different factions, sub-factions, for the Union, is that you can just go crazy with any kind of hierarchical or non-hierarchical structure of power. No matter the kind of idea you have, the Union is a great place to implement it. It's really fun to play around with for a writer, and I cannot describe to you how excited I am to show you more of our toolboxes, of our playthings in the lore toolbox of the PlanetQuest universe.
Yeah, I'm sure we're all looking very much forward to seeing that play out. Can you apply this to the Triumvirate? What are some things that you take into consideration when writing the leadership of a clan like this?
With the Triumvirate, it's really about finding a formula that makes each of the three leaders have a very specific role within the clan. So, as I said, Benagor is a strategist. The Scourge of Larat is something of a blunt tool, a blunt weapon, a hammer to nail down the enemies of the clan. And then we've got the third Triumvirate, the youngest of them all. He was a mere 17 at the time of the Night of Moon's Fall. And this man is named Skoll. And he is perhaps the most diplomatic of the three characters. He is the one that they will usually send in to make sure that a big negotiation doesn't get out of hand, that the Red Moons get what they are owed. So it's finding a sort of balance between everything that is necessary to run a militaristic society, such as the one that defines the Red Moon's lives.
Well, I'm sure the story of the Red Moons is far from over. Can you give us, like similar to the last episode, can you give us a little sneak peek of something that you're looking forward to in the near future?
If our production schedule is right, by the time this airs, we're going to be having a whole different conflict in another part of the PlanetQuest universe entirely. And it will be playing out in a very interesting way that has been building up for since the beginning of Season 1 really. And I'm very excited to see how the community reacts to that. And at the center of it, we're going to be having two Federation corporations in fact, two of the most important ones and the best developed ones we have in the lore, Vastek and Tonocon. And I'm very excited to see what the community will make of it, what the votes will be like, what the vote results in particular will be like. And I look forward to maybe talking about that, or about the Federation at large next time.
Absolutely, because of course we are not only going to be diving into the sub-factions of the Union, we have 2 more factions with many sub-factions that are fascinating and interesting to explore. So let us know what you would like to see in future episodes below. And thank you so much for joining me, Philip. Thank you for all your insights. And I look forward to doing this again. This is lots of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nora, for hosting this, as always, and for having me. And I look forward to talking to you some more.
Of course. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for watching. Be sure to join our Discord if you haven't yet. Stay tuned for the next episode, and we'll see you in the Explorer program. Bye, everybody.
Bye.